Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Mayday, Mayday. Is Caitlyn Jenner a contender? We're going to try to grab the baton and discuss if Jenner has what it takes to unseat Governor Newsom. On a different note, we're going to tackle the issue of free speech in our schools and for our young folks in a segment called Freedom of Speech, Baby, Maybe. Can we have it all in this political climate? Is the long, dark winter finally over? What's in store for America as spring has sprung and we emerge from our COVID cocoons? And in the member zone, the commie holiday is upon us. Is this a fun holiday or a commie distress call? All this and more coming up on this edition of the Conservative Five. Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, Jesse Ventura, Arnold Schwarzenegger all raised eyebrows of the political elite because they won. But who among us is ready for the likes of Caitlyn Jenner to toss her tiara into the governor's race in California? And what exactly are Miss Jenner's chances in such a high-stakes game? Our C5 panel is chomping at the bit to discuss. Can the 71-year-old Jenner sprint to the finish in her Prada pumps? Sarah, you wrote this week about the recall effort of Governor Gavin Newsom, which is now, I guess, in a 30-day waiting period, and the governor's reaction to Jenner's announcement. So it may shape up to be the story of the pretty boy versus the pretty lady in California, yes?
I think so. And I'm kind of excited about it. Not because, well, you know, I want to see Gavin Newsom go on any way, shape, or form, but I like Caitlyn Jenner. I like her policies. I like her conservatism. I just like her as a candidate, and I know it'll throw a monkey wrench into everybody in California. They won't know what to do. They can't really say anything bad because then that would make them look a little less inclusive. But again, the signatures are still coming in. They're still being verified, even though they've passed that threshold. But again, the 30-day waiting period. So who knows? Maybe they'll figure out a loophole to, strong arm some people into bailing out. But at this point, I think we're going to see a pretty fun race situating in front of our face for maybe September or October.
Jeff, do you think the pretty boy is in trouble and Caitlyn could unseat him?
You know, what I will say is that this is one of the things that I love about my home state. We always have wacky, crazy people running for governor. Just to remind you, Gary Coleman was running for governor at one point in the past. But as for Newsom, I think he might be on his way out. I think people are fed up. I predicted even late last year that this whole COVID thing, people were going to get fed up with it. They were going to revolt, peacefully, obviously, through the electoral process, and that California would lead the way. I think Newsom, his days are numbered. I don't know if it'll be Caitlyn Jenner. It's possible, and it's easy to sleep on somebody like that because she is a celebrity. But at the same time, she's been a Republican for a while. She's been involved with politics for a while, even if she hadn't run for office. So she might be taking this more seriously than it seems like. And this might not just be something that she's doing for clout.
Well, Tim, you know a little something about outsiders running for office?
I do. It was 10 years ago, almost to the day, that I announced my candidacy for the United States Senate. And a lot of people have asked me, are you happy that you lost? And I don't answer the question, but that's how difficult the political process, is these days. But if there's any place that Caitlyn Jenner could succeed, California is the perfect place. As a matter of fact, I don't know that she could actually run for office anywhere but California, but I also think she could win. In the land of fruits, nuts, and flakes, Caitlyn Jenner looks kind of mainstream because she balances off the fact she's a transgender with her conservative ideas. It strikes me it's similar to Tim Scott in the sense that Caitlyn Jenner saying things that the mainstream media can't really attack her about because she's a transgender. She's in a protected class. And Tim Scott, conservative Black Republican who gave the response to Biden's quasi State of the Union. They can't really attack him because he's genuine. So people like Caitlyn Jenner and Tim Scott put the elite biased media in a very difficult position.
Andrew, coming from your perch in Toronto, what chances do you think Ms. Jenner have?
Well, what I find interesting is that when the announcement was made, I was writing an article about Saul Alinsky, and one of his rules really makes it adaptable to the situation is that make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. So, when I heard the announcement, I thought this was a great pick to troll and own the left because conservatives will be taking the rule out of that playbook. As Tim alluded to, if anyone criticized Caitlyn Jenner, the left would be engaging in xenophobia based on that very own playbook. You saw it this week, actually, with Ted Lieu. He was talking down to Jenner and mansplaining on Twitter, saying that she should watch the Schoolhouse Rock videos to learn about the United States Constitution. Of course, if Jenner were running as a Democrat, the media would be up in arms, demanding the resignation of whoever made these criticisms. But, is Caitlyn Jenner much of a conservative? A lot of people are saying that are making these vague allusions, but, what specific policy proposals is she talking about? And also, is this a genuine campaign or an autodidactic campaign? When I think of celebrities or, non-political people running for office, I always think of William F. Buckley when he ran for New York City mayor, and his was an autodidactic campaign to champion conservative ideas. Is she doing the same thing? Who knows? Maybe it's too early to tell. She has to be, release more white papers or policy proposals or something. Maybe she'll surprise everyone. Trump did. Sarah wrote this week that, she's Trump in a skirt. He was a typical New York liberal, a Rockefeller-esque Republican. He came in office, he championed a lot of conservative principles, and he enacted a lot of conservative ideas. And, he's probably the best conservative president since Ronald Reagan. So will she be a great conservative governor? Time will tell.
I don't know how you put in context the term mansplaining in the ear of transgenders, though. I mean, how does that work?
Well, I'm confused by it, too. So they don't ask me. But, I'm assuming because, Ted Lieu man, Caitlyn Jenner is a woman, so is that the proper context to do it?
I don't know, but sure. Andrew, stop using big words.
All right, but Sarah, you're political in the know from way back. You think this is a real candidate, and she's got some real platforms.
I do, because I still have some liberal friends in the state of California, and they are also people who sign petitions to get rid of Newsom. And they sent me the fundraising email that the Newsom camp sent out. And they think Caitlyn Jenner is Trump in a skirt. And they are terrified. And they are begging for money to help fight this. They know that this is going to go through, even though there's still that 30-day waiting period. They know it's going to happen. There's not going to be one Democrat to step in and try to run, because that's political suicide if you're a Democrat, to run against your own idiot guy in office. It's political suicide no matter what party you're part of. So a Republican could easily get the votes and walk away with this. And nobody's talking about the other two guys. They're talking about Caitlyn Jenner. Nobody's fundraising because of the other two guys. They're fundraising because of Caitlyn Jenner. And I think Caitlyn Jenner is going to surprise everyone. The email was as panic-stricken as I've seen in a long time of fundraising emails. It was desperate.
Well, and there's also the fact that, people might not even vote for Caitlyn Jenner. They may just vote against Gavin Newsom. So that's another way that she could potentially get into office. Just say, hey, I'm not that person. I'm me. Here's some policies, but just remember, I'm not that guy. I will oppose everything that he did. And that might be all that she has to say to get elected, because I do think people are fed up. And I've seen them recall a governor before. I've seen them do this before. So, it is as crazy as it sounds. I think she has a good shot.
Following on what Jeff said, she could just pull a reverse Joe Biden. She can say, I'm not Gavin Newsom, the same way Biden said, elect me because I'm not Donald Trump. That's the only reason he got elected. So how high is the bar?
Or she could say like Joe Biden and said, I can defeat Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Here's the other thing. Never underestimate the drive of an Olympic athlete. They are conditioned to be the best, rise to the top, kick ass, take names, and keep going. And as Bruce Jenner, he did. As Caitlyn Jenner, he hasn't lost that drive. He wants to win, and that is frightening to these people.
I think that's a really good point. And it's obvious, like you said, by the Newsom email that went out to the Democratic donors, that the Gov considers Ms. Jenner's candidacy a real threat. And let's face it, things have been a bit dull since Trump left the big stage. So maybe a Jenner-Newsom race will emerge to ignite some political fireworks. Thanks, panel, and stay tuned to Liberty Nation for all the fun that's sure to come. Recently, headlines have been made by parents pushing back against the tyranny imposed upon students by educators of our secular institutions. Kids are being forced to embrace radical ideologies and alternatively punished for expressing themselves on social media platforms. The schoolhouse and the schoolyard are fraught with political landmines. So much so, the United States Supreme Court heard arguments this week in what could be a landmark student free speech case. Jeff, you've got a couple of kids in school. What part of this classroom circus has you riled up as a parent and as a commentator?
It was weird. I read up on it, and I was like, this is like the weirdest case to go before the Supreme Court. I get why it is. I understand, but I was like, this is just kind of weird. I mean, first off, where are the parents where their kids are tweeting or Snapchatting this stuff? Snapchat is the devil, I will tell you right now. I'm okay with other social media, but Snapchat, it can be deleted at any time. So to me, I'm like, what's going on here? Jeff,
let me interrupt you for a second. Can you backtrack and tell our viewers a little bit about this case? It's, what's happening in this case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I read up on this case, and apparently what happened is this 14 or 15-year-old girl was cut from the cheerleading team because for whatever reason, and then they kicked her off the entire team, the JV team, because she went on Snapchat and basically threw a tantrum about the issue, said some things that she probably shouldn't have said about the coach. She was dropping F-bombs all over the place, and it was a mess. And so in retaliation, I suppose, they kicked her off the entire team. So the Supreme Court is judging whether or not that action was warranted. Now, like I've said before, Snapchat is the devil. Don't let your kids use it. Other social media is probably okay, but Snapchat, when you record a message on Snapchat, it's not actually recorded. It only stays there for 24 hours, then it disappears. So people can say all kinds of stuff. But in this kid's case, one of her friends had recorded it on her screen and then showed it to the coach. They probably didn't like each other all that much. But what's interesting, though, is that in adjudicating this case, the justices are determining whether or not her speech was disruptive. Because if you can show that it's disruptive, then you can have the case for taking punitive action. But in this case, I'm not seeing that it was definitely wrong, but I'm not seeing that it was disruptive to the point to where she should have been retaliated against that way.
Well, her parents should have stepped in and smacked her around and found a bar of ivory soap to stuff in her pie hole. But, on the other hand, it's still freedom of speech. And I think we have come really close too many times to chip away at this right that we have in this country. And, as distasteful as it is, I kind of think it's okay that the Supreme Court went the way they did, asking questions and how they came about, it's not some precedented breaking, news or anything, but it's going to keep happening. It's going to be the next guy and the next guy and the next kid. And you say something wrong about, I don't want to study that at this school and my professor's an idiot. My God, you're not going to be allowed to speak ever again. They're going to lock you up. So I think where we're going with this is dangerous. And I think that this gives me a little bit of hope that, even though we don't like Mean Girls, we don't like the Mean Girls, but she was just venting. It was over. Venting, over, done.
Yeah, I think this is a more complicated case than one would think, though. I mean, what if somebody takes to Snapchat or whatever and puts all the answers to the big math exam? What if somebody keeps going on Facebook urging another cheerleader to commit suicide? I mean, There's a lot of nuance in this case, don't you think, Andrew?
Yeah, but I'd like to make one point though. I think when Jeff says that Snapchat is the devil, I think TikTok is really the devil of all the social media outlets. But this whole case, it frightens me as a father. I have twins. They're only 3 years old in a couple of months. And I'm worried that when they go to school, they have to endure all of this. They have to endure the social media. They're going to be pressured to do it. They're going to have to deal with these indoctrination centers. They're going to have to deal with these leftist professors. They're going to deal with laws and regulations and all that stuff. And I really think that when you read up these cases happening in these government schools, it really makes the case for homeschooling. Homeschooling, you don't have to deal with so much of this because parents have a one-on-one education, or they can outsource to a tutor when it comes to the more complicated subject. But overall, these government-run schools, these government indoctrination centers, whatever we want to call them, they're terrifying places. I just hope my kids stay 3 years old and never grow up, or maybe I'll change my mind soon. But overall, government schools they're cesspools these days.
All right, Tim.
Well, you know what I want? I want the Supreme Court to establish some sort of bright line on this, because, the Supreme Court is in the business of settling issues that cannot be settled anywhere else. And they seem to be reluctant to do that. They didn't do it with the election. They seem to be hesitant with settling gun disputes. They seem to be walking on eggshells. So the important thing is to establish some sort of benchmark, some sort of clear line on an issue like this, which is very difficult. There's good arguments to be made on both sides. So let's see if we get some wisdom out of the Supreme Court, which I'm not sure that any of us have seen a whole lot of in recent weeks or months.
We really hold up to the Supreme Court, or the Americans really hold up to the Supreme Court as such a crucial body. It's 9 people. Why should 9 people, dictate the law of the land? I never understood that as something.
Well, they're not to dictate it; they're to interpret it. They have to interpret it, and that's why they get paid the big bucks and have the cushy job, because they're the ones that have to decide what others can't decide. So we can debate it, but they have to, I just want them to make a decision with some teeth so that it doesn't have a limited application and cases like this keep revolving back to the Supreme Court. Again, this is more about the court than the issue, but I think maybe I'm not speaking for all of us, but I personally have been somewhat disappointed in the Supreme Court.
No, I actually think that's a really good point. I agree. I mean, the Supreme Court is a more lofty institution. So in a case such as this, whatever ruling they make, they need to make sure that it's not such an ambiguous ruling that it just ends up back there again. Like you said, Tim, they need to say, okay, this is the line, this is where you don't cross, or these are the rules, or whatever, or however that works. They do need to make it a more definitive decision. Otherwise, we're just going to keep hearing about this over and over and over again.
Once all this shakes out, one has to wonder if this means parents will begin a mass exodus, like Andrew said, to homeschool their children. What began for many as the result of COVID restrictions might just turn out to be the answer for conservative parents who don't want their children either propagandized or punished by the public schools. We were warned by Joe Biden, the candidate, then Joe Biden, the president, in his inaugural address, no less, about a long, dark winter. And boy, did it cast a pall on Americans. But it appears that spring has finally sprung her way into our lives anyway. At Liberty Nation, we wondered what fun and frolic are in store for a country emerging like a butterfly from its COVID-mandated cocoon. In his quasi-so-to speech, Joe Biden sounded particularly dark. Quote, the worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since Civil War, unquote. Talk about a Debbie Downer. But others aren't so negative. The Tennessee governor says COVID's over, and he plans to invite people to the capital of country music. And there are other events that may get our viewers thinking about backyard barbecues or attending their local tractor pull. Andrew has spring poked its head out in Toronto.
Unfortunately not. This is going to be Scott because I know he comes up here a
How
lot.
surprising.
We have a complete COVID-19 lockdown. You know, everyone has to stay at home, can't do anything. Everything's closed. The hospitals are under as a complete ICU collapse. Can't do anything. So we'll have to stay inside, wait to be jabbed, and then maybe we can go out with our free masks. But south of the border, hey, baseball's here. The Red Sox are first in the American League East. The Mets are a third in the National League East. So, when I saw that Globe Life in Texas, former Arlington Stadium, I was jubilated because you had a packed stadium. It was pre-COVID times. It looked like pre-COVID times, and everyone was having fun, and baseball was there. So real baseball being back, except of course the second inning, the runner on second base in the 10th inning. That's not good. But overall, baseball is back. So yeah, the spring is in the air because MLB has returned.
Let me just say one thing. He was taking a dig at Tim because Tim's a Mets fan, but let me just say one thing. It was announced today that Mayor de Blasio said that everything is going to be absolutely normal in New York and stadiums can go back to full capacity as of July 1. Just wanted to stick that in.
Is it possible to dismiss one of the participants in the middle of one of these segments? Because we laid down the rules very clearly, Andrew. It was unambiguous. There was to be no mention of baseball, specifically not the Mets, and extra specifically not the Red Sox. Now, you violated every rule. Maybe YouTube can somehow censor this, find the content to not meet their community standards.
Exactly. You think Andrew has violated our community standards, right?
I think maybe when we edit this piece, there needs to be like red over where
a big maple leaf
picture. Maple leaf.
I just don't think it's fair that Tim gets to change the rules in the middle of the dang game.
Yeah, nobody else heard those rules, Tim. She's right.
I have.
Yeah, you can't just make it up on the fly there, big guy.
I recorded the call.
Yeah. Gosh.
Unbeknownst to everybody.
Send the MLB crew in New York.
Jeff, what do you have for us? Something fun for people to do now that they're getting out of their COVID mandated cocoons.
Yeah, Nashville sounds fun. I mean, maybe I can catch Zach Brown or Darius Rucker, but I think I looked this up and I'm like, we have Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, and the NASCAR Cup Series is going to be here next month. I might just check that out because I've been to a drag race before when I was a kid. My mom took me, but I've never been to an actual NASCAR race. I'm not really into NASCAR, but it might be fun.
Absolutely. When I was an anchor in Charlotte, North Carolina, I went to my first World 600 NASCAR race, and I was introduced to Goodies powder, and they call it Dew. They don't call it Mountain Dew. But make sure to bring the earplugs. The earplug that you take to the shooting range.
And the greatest fan base ever. They're just down home, good people, no matter if they have millions, no matter if they have a few bucks in their pocket. Just really good, get along, good time at a NASCAR race.
Absolutely. NASCAR is fun.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if this is the same with everyone else, but when I got out just a few days ago, just to walk around the kind of small town that we live in, though it's near a big town, just walking around, I got the sense that life was starting to return to normal. It's the first time I actually felt that since life shut down last March. It just the sense, the vibe you get from people. So if you're in an area with a nice walking downtown neighborhood, just get out, walk around, feel the vibe, people are more optimistic. I mean, Joe Biden's the beneficiary of a country that is actively reviving after COVID.
All right, I'm going to go with mine next. This weekend, Ladson, Ladson, South Carolina, is the place to go for a motorcycle event gingerly titled the Southeast Iron Butt Ride. Bikers.
That sounds like something Sarah made up.
Bikers. Now. Oh.
It's true.
Fighting words, Tim. Fighting words.
Let me finish. Bikers gather in lovely Charleston, which if you have not been, the food, everything in Charleston is fantastic. Anyway, all bikes are welcome. Jeff, you can bring your tricycle. Yeah. And they call the ride the Saddle Sore 1000. Best of all, the ride benefits Operation Homefront, supporting military families in need. Saturday night, there'll be an after party. My gosh, tons of bikers with sore butts. That couldn't be more fun. All right, Sarah, you can venture out where you live. What do you got for us?
Heck, we've been venturing out all along. We, treasonous bastards are we here in Indiana. We've pretty much been normal. Kids are back on the baseball fields, but I'm waiting on tornado season so we can duck and dodge and watch the hail, and then it'll be 80 degrees and then 60 and then 80. And then I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to grab my cousin. I'm going to head west to New Mexico for a little fun in the sun. I haven't had a road trip in a year and a half. No, except for that one over Election Day, and that was so much a letdown. But other than that, that's where I'm headed. So if you see me near Rolla, Missouri, I will make a stop there because they have the most famous fudge factory ever. It's called Uranus Fudge, and it's phenomenal. And I'm bringing everybody a box.
Oh, my goodness.
Is that the actual name?
That's the actual name. You'll walk in the store and they're like, welcome to Uranus. These people are a hoot.
By the way, you have some weird foods out here. When you came and visited in October, you brought some kind of, was it bourbon?
Sweet corn bourbon from Old 55 Distillery. And that's local here, right down the road from where I'm at. And yes, there will be some coming. They just put up a reserve amount. And I let them know about my bourbon sucking friends in the DC area. And they said, we've got something saved special for you. So I will be bringing that.
Well, it was special. I think maybe we ought to all get out and gaze at the climate because it's changing so fast, we're told. We ought to just soak it all in because it's changing so fast. And we'll all be dead in, what's the latest estimate? 10 years, 12 years?
5 years, because AOC, her doomsday clock started 3 years ago, and she said we had 9 years left, so 6 years to go until we're all dead.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she readjusted already.
Gaze upon the climate, which they used to call weather.
We rejoined the Paris Accord. Nothing's going to go wrong now. We're all set.
We solved the entire problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, get your arc out for the polar caps will be melting rapidly. Personally, I'd like to try the Iron Butt ride, but surely it's time to give this feisty season a chance to return America to some semblance of normalcy and sanity. Thanks, panel. See y'all in Charleston. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 a year. This has been a production of libertynationnews.com. Conservative news where truth matters.